what we are doing and why we're doing it. And then I will open it up and we'll have discussions about anything we'd like to talk about. Today, we spent a couple of hours looking at what has happened in the United States since 2007, from the recession, the Great Recession, until now. And I will say this, that we have not recovered from the Great Recession. We've recovered in getting jobs. We've recovered in getting people back to work. But one area we have not recovered is the per capita income. The median per capita income in the nation is way down. So there are different ways of looking at it. I take one approach, and my approach is the largest pay increase you can give a constituent in the state of Maine is to lower or eliminate the income tax. And I will tell you why. Maine is the oldest state in the union. We are median age of about 44 years old. The per median income of our seniors, people over 65 years old, is about $35,000. By increase, and there's only 6,000 people who physically earn minimum wage, who work 40 hours a week. You hear people making less than minimum wage, like waiters and waitresses and a lot of entry-level jobs. Adults in the state of Maine with a full-time job of 6,000 people. We have the largest fixed income population per capita in the nation. So when you look at that, you say, if you go to $15 like they tried to do in Portland, raise their wages, if you do that, the largest constituent in the state will get severely hurt. People on a fixed income will get severe hurt if the income tax doesn't go up. So do you do that, or you take those who pay income tax and give them their money back? Give them their money back. And there are 803,000 people in the state of Maine who are working out of 1.3 million. I want to take those 803,000 people who are working, give them their income tax back. Between May 31st and Labor Day, in the state of Maine last year, we had 36 million visitors. So I say, let's raise the sales tax so they can pay a little bit more and take the income tax and give it back to Maine people. I think that is a strategy that I did not invent. That is a strategy that's been used in New Hampshire, Texas, Florida, South Dakota. If you look at their economies versus our economy, it's just like night and day. If you go to Florida, we were in Florida not too long ago, you see large cranes everywhere. I haven't seen many cranes in Maine. When I say large cranes, it's a big self-standing cranes that build multi-story buildings. So that is one area that I've been working on. In 2011, the income tax revenues in the state of Maine in 2011 were $2.9 billion. The income tax was 8.5%. We've reduced it down to 7.15%, which takes effect this year, it's going to be last year. But in 2014, the revenues at the lower income tax were $3.4 billion. And what I'm saying to you is the majority of people that get more money in their pocket will invest it in themselves, their homes, their property, their cars. We, as a state, depend on two sources, the two biggest sources of sales tax that come from the Maine economy. The bulk of the Maine economy is in cars and some building supplies. That's from Mainers. From out-of-staters in the summer months, it's tourism. They spend dearly. So I really believe that if we shift, and many states are doing it, 19 states have, or like Oklahoma had a 7.25 income tax, and they're down to 4%. There's a referendum, it's going to be on next year's ballot or the following year, whatever, they're working on it. I just urge people to at least give it the debate. We can't get it done in the legislature because my party, does not have enough votes to pass it, and the other party clearly will not reduce taxes. And I mean, I'm not talking out of school, they never have and they never will. The only time they reduced taxes in 2011 is we did it just before the election, and they had no choice. So, I really believe an income tax is truly counterproductive to grow an economy. The second thing I want to talk to you about is welfare reform. I see Mary Mayhew here in the front. Mary Mayhew has done just absolutely marvelous work at tightening up the safety net and requiring people to at least look for a job. Now, the problem is not that everybody on welfare is bad. As a matter of fact, it's 95% of people on welfare are good. They deserve it, and those are the people you want to take care of in certain categories. For instance, the Medicaid, the PANF, and food stamps. But there are some things we have to clean up. For instance, TANF money, the EBT cards that we give so that people can have cash. Those cards are loaded by the federal government on the 9th of the month, and the money's made available by midnight on the 10th. I think it's the 10th. And between midnight and 3 a.m., 50% of the money on the cards in Maine is gone. 50%. Cities in which the money goes to: Bronx, Brooklyn, Philadelphia, Las Vegas, and Orlando. Those are the top 5. Now, if you need baby formula, between midnight and 3 a.m., there are not too many places to get it in Maine. That's all I'm saying. Last year, the first 3 years of being governor, every drug bust, we would have 4, 5, 6 EBT cards. Last October, we started putting pictures on. John Morris says he hasn't seen an EBT card in a drug bust because people are smart enough to see they don't want their picture in a drug bust. So we're going to continue to push, because in the last budget, I had an income tax of 5.75%. I had eliminated the wait list for disabled people, for mentally ill, and for elderly. I totally eliminated the 4,200 people on the waiting list. And in infinite wisdom of the legislature, they took, out of the 46 million we put in, they took about 30 million out of there. They put 20 million back in education, 10 million to illegal aliens, and we still have a wait list, which I find absolutely criminal. It's just not right. Now, everybody talks about, oh, we got to bring in the refugees. I have no problem with refugees. Not a single problem with a primary or a secondary refugee. I have no problem with it. Because they've been given a medical clearance before they enter the country. They're entered legally. Where I have a real issue is asylum seekers. Asylum seekers have no medical clearance. They overstayed the visa, or they came in from Mexico, or came in from Canada. We have to supply, they apply for the visa for an asylum. It takes 18 months, which the community has to pay for them. and 70% of asylum seekers are returned to their home country. 70%. So for 2 years, we take care of them, and then they sent back. These are not the asylum seekers. They're not coming out of the Congo or war areas. They're coming out of being in the country illegally. And when they're just about ready to get deported, they file for asylum. And I don't think that that's right, and I'll tell you why. In the state of Maine, we are struggling with homeless veterans. Veterans with PTSD can't find jobs. So I would think that we would take care of the people that we sent over to keep us free. We take care of them. And we're not doing a good job at it. In fact, I met with the VA today, and they were trying to get Washington to get their act together and say, yeah, we're going to take care of it. So when it comes to welfare, we want a safety net so that everyone who qualifies for services gets the services. And just before I get off the topic, the people that are on welfare, a lot of people say, well, tell me it's a young woman, single mom with kids. Between the ages of 19 and 49, 62% are men without any known infirmities. Now, let's say physical infirmities. They may have drug issues and some of those things, but they would not otherwise qualify. So everybody says I'm a bad guy to ask him to go ask for work. Well, let me tell you why I did that. Because the federal government requires us to do it. And Governor Angus King and Governor Baldacci waived that piece of it. They said, don't just give it to them, don't worry about the job. Well, the problem with that is they spent $29 million, which the federal government wants me to pay back. Because we weren't telling them to go get a job. We just asked them to look for a job. There's a difference. And some won't even do that. So I'm not as sympathetic for those folks as I would be for those who qualify for the services. Next subject I want to talk about is energy. I've been working on energy since 2011 to try to get the price down. Miserable failure. Miserable failure. The state of Maine will only invest in wind and solar. Wind and solar has only raised the price of energy until we were able to get other states. And if you notice in the last year, we've now have Connecticut, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island in a coalition. And we are all working together to get a natural gas pipeline to Maine. And all of a sudden, natural gas prices are down and oil is down. So we're benefiting from that. But that's artificial. That's artificial because there's overproduction in the Middle East to try to get away from the fracking. They don't want fracking on the market because when they do that, we're independent. We're energy independent, and we don't buy them the foreign oils. So there's a lot of politics in that. But that horse is out of the barn. We no longer need the legislature because the market is speaking now. Standard offer for this coming February is going to be down 2 cents. It's not perfect. We're still in double digits, but we're heading in the right direction. The other thing is we have several companies that are looking to put in transmission lines through Maine from Canada. It's very early on. I mean, it's just like in the phone call stage and we're setting up meetings. But they're looking at Maine as a place to do transmission down to southern New England, which will be really good because while it's not as good as we had our own dams, it's going to be market price for hydroelectricity, which is cheaper than wind and solar. It's considerably cheaper. So those are the things we're doing on the energy. And the last one that you're gonna hear a lot, and this is what I'm gonna talk about for the next year, every single week in town hall, student debt. Right now, the national student debt default rate is 17%. The average four-year graduate's got $100,000. The problem with it, my son, we paid for his undergraduate studies. He went into his master's with not a penny owed anybody and came out with his master's with a $50,000 bill. I have a daughter in law school who's going to come out with like $100 and some odd thousand dollars of legal bills. I mean bills, student loans. The problem with that is that we in Maine, if we allow that to continue, those kids will look for dollars. When you're 20, let's say 22 to 30, you don't look at the future as much as you look at today. How much am I going to make today? Because I'm immortal at 25. So you don't worry about retirements and all that. You're worried about paying that bill. I have a young couple from Portland. He's a PA at Maine Medical, and she's got a master's in physical therapy. Together, they owe $168,000. Their rent is $1,000 a month because they don't have the equity to get a house. The student loans are about $1,600 a month. So it's $2,600. Before they pay their taxes, they got to eat. And she says to me, the wife says, you know, we'd love to start a family and buy a house, but they can't. So what's happening with that dynamics? That dynamics is they're not contributing to the growth of our society. They're not paying. All their money is going to debt. I want them to be able to buy a house. I want them to invest in a new car. I want them to invest in Maine's economy. So this is what we want to do. I have a bill in the legislature that says the state will borrow $10 million in bonds. The state will pay the interest on the bonds. We will loan the money interest-free to the college students. We'll have all kinds of, this is just the overall. The concept is, when they get out of school, a Maine company hires them. The Maine company pays their student loan off, and we give them a dollar-for-dollar deduction on their income. So now, the kid has to study for 4 years, or 6 years, or 8 years. Gets out, he's got debt. We take the employer and say, you pay the debt off. And kids know one thing, if they don't have to worry about that debt, they're real happy. They can go buy a smartphone and do other things. We're getting enormous kudos from public sector, from the business sector. The issue is going to be in the legislature. Now, the Alphon Center, the Alphon Foundation are working with us. And they're working with some businesses as well. And they're saying if you can get that passed, what we will do is after a student has worked for 5 years in Maine, we will take a look at their student debt. We'll pay off 50% of the principal that's remaining. And if they're here after 10 years working in Maine and they have some debt left, we'll pay it off. Now that's what you call a private-public partnership that is going to benefit Maine. Now, people are saying, oh, the kids are going to get a break. Well, let me tell you something. If we are giving, there's 14,000 people dying a year in the state of Maine. 14,000. 12,000 babies are being born. Eric, the superintendent, and educators here know that every year the population of the schools are going down. We are now down to under 179,000 kids. So if we don't get more kids in school, when 14,000 die, 12,000 being born, we are in a negative. We're one of 2 states that are in a negative position. Now, out of the 12,000 babies being born, 1,000 are addicted or affected by drugs. We don't know what the long-term implications are because we're just dealing with the 3rd and 4th year of that problem. So we don't know what the long-term implication of those 1,000 kids a year being born. The other big issue is another 700 kids being born that have all the ailments, the rare ailments that are known to man. I've met an ungodly number of babies with some of the diseases I never heard of. Some crabby, which is a horrible, horrible disease I'd never seen. I met this young girl, 2 years old. Another, I met an 18-month-old that has a disease where you touch her and the skin falls off. It's incredible diseases that are out there. There's about, and that's the extreme, all the way to moderate to severe autism, which is on the rise. So these are all issues we have to deal with. So when you're all said and done, they're saying 14 contributors died, 14,000 contributors. Now you're down to about 10,250 babies being born that are going to replace it. 1980, there were 3.3 people for every retiree. 2.3 people working for every retiree in the United States. Today, it's 2.9. By 2020, 2.1 in Maine. Those are people that are working. So that's why I think by doing this and advertising it nationally, we can attract people with heavy student debt to Maine. We can get them working here, reduce the age, and the reason we're using 5 and 10 years is we want them to establish themselves. Once you make friends, you establish yourself, start raising a family, the likelihood of keeping you is much better. If you allow a student to leave your state to go to higher education, 70% never come back. So what we've got to do is we got to beef up our higher ed, we got to beef up our K through 12, and the problem with the K through 12 is it's not just the main problem. We happen to not do very well overall. But the biggest problem is K through 3. Our proficiency's in the 30s, 30% top. We need to get it up to 60. The whole country's only in the 40s. If we got it up to 60, we'd be leading. So, education, we just brought Bill Beardsley out of retirement. He's been in education for many, many years. And we'll bring him back to head up the education department and see if we can, the next 3 years of my administration, focus on education. Focus on doing what I believe is absolutely necessary for the success of the state, is to get more money into the classroom. I know Eric's here and he's going to cringe, but we have 179,000 students. We have 120 somewhat superintendents. State of Florida, who incidentally ranked number 7 in the nation, has 2.8 million kids K through 12, 64 superintendents. Their second language English speaking people in the city of Miami, primarily Spanish, they score 1 point behind Maine K through 12 kids in English. And the reason why is Governor Bush, when he was the governor, he focused in on K through 3. He also went into early childhood. And if you want to get into that, that's a different story. I just got the Vanderbilt report that I'm reading right now. So with that, that's what we're doing. Why we're doing it is for the economy of the state of Maine to move up. We want to be prosperous. And it's not going to be me. I'm on the tail end. But my children, the young people in this audience, I want my children, my grandchildren, to be able to live in Maine, be prosperous, without having to live at a standard of living less than we all in this room are living. Because with an $18 trillion debt load, at some point, I just looked today, that in the statistics I was looking today, a 0.25% increase in the interest rate that just happened this week in federal is going to boost our debt payment from 6%, the interest from 6% of the GDP to 9%. Just 0.25%. It's unsustainable. It is clearly unsustainable that the debt and the entitlements of Social Security, Medicare, healthcare, and Social Security, and the debt is going to be nearly 90% of the federal budget, which means that states are going to have to provide the services. In order to do that, we have to have people working, we have to have a prosperous economy. So with that, open up the question.
Mikhail from
No more setups, by the way. I got set up last week.
Gary Mayhew. Who are you? Gary? Stand up. Come on out. That's good. You're from Waterville?
Yes. Okay.
My reporter today is saying, don't give up the mic raise.
See, that's what happened.
When you first became governor, the unemployment rate was 8.3%. It's now at about 4.3%.
4.1.
Okay, 4.1, okay, that's even better. Congratulations, we appreciate that. Can anything more be done to improve Maine's economy even more than what we've already done, besides what you've mentioned tonight?
Yeah, I think the single biggest thing we can do to lower the unemployment right now is to get that group of people in 1949 the work skills they need to be able to maintain a job. That's a real big thing that we're working on. That's a real big ticket item. That's going to help. That's going to require CTEs, adult education, the community college, and the university to get together and to have programs that can get kids certified quicker. One thing we're doing this year, university, the rural university up in Fort Kent, University of Maine Fort Kent, has 400 high school kids that are going to college. And what we are doing is we take kids going out of the 10th grade, going into the 11th grade, we put them at the university and see how far they can go. We did that in 2011, and by 2013, when that group graduated, it was a lottery. 24 kids started out, 24 kids finished. One student completed high school in a year and a half of college. 17 completed high school and 1 year of college, and the rest completed at least a semester. So those are the things that we do. Work readiness is the most important thing to lower the unemployment rate. Because we have right now 15,000 jobs, but I don't have the skill sets required to fill those jobs. Either in the geography where the job is, there's no one available, with the skill sets that are needed. So we have to work on skill sets so we can get people to be able to hold and keep a job. So that's one single thing. But I will tell you, everybody around the country, Rick Scott in Florida created 1.2 million jobs since he's been the governor. 1.2 million jobs. He hired the entire state of Maine. And they don't pay income tax. That's a big one.
Next question, Alan Tibbetts.
Governor, could you please explain what you intend to do in regard to the Kennebec County Commissioner vacancy?
I'm waiting for a list. As soon as they give me a list, the way the law reads, the party, which would be, I think in Kennebec, they were Democrats. So the Democratic Party in Kennebec County has to give me 3 names, or at least a list.
They gave you a list of 2 names.
Well, I haven't seen it.
Your staff does.
But there has to be 3.
The law doesn't say that.
I don't know what it is, but I know that I haven't seen it. I'm waiting for it. I will look into it, but I don't know. Mike, I'm told you got to have 3 names, a list of names. What they did last time is they give me 1 name and they say that's who we want. It's not your choice. It's my choice. So as soon as I have names, adequate names, and they may be in the office, I haven't seen it, but I'll check in.
I know, sir, that they only have 3 applicants.
Well, then they got to send them to me.
last I knew, there was only one, so if there's two now, that's new information.
Yeah,
They
that's
should
new
be sending us
information.
those.
I'm not aware of 3, but if there is, we'll take care of it.
Next question, Dennis Perkins?
There's some up in other counties that they haven't given me that, so. There's one in York County, and I think even Bangor, probate issues that I haven't seen anything, but I'll check to see if there's anything.
Governor, you may have answered part of this, actually. Is there a way that state government can help attract 100 new businesses each who would hire 10 employees, rather than spending a lot of time and money trying to find one new business with 1,000 employees?
Well, what you're asking for is entrepreneurs, and the answer is yes. We are working very, very hard to do that. Not only are we trying to attract people to start businesses, we're trying to take main businesses and enhance them so they can hire. I would rather see existing main business hire 1 or 2 more people than worry about having thousands of people. Because the people that want to come in and give you 200 jobs, 300 jobs, 1,000 jobs, there's a price for that. You have to be competitive with the other states, and it's very, very difficult. Very, very difficult. And what I mean by that is they don't want to pay taxes for 10 years. We have one right now that doesn't want to pay, have to collect income tax for a year and a half. I mean, so you really, I would much rather see local businesses have enough business to grow and hire 1 more person. So the answer is yes. Entrepreneurs, having people that will take the risk of running a business is a very small pool of people. Very small. And we do have what is called the Maine Technology Institute that will give out hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars a year for people to start up their companies. You give them, startup money.
Don Ashton? I know Don, so stand right up, Don. Well, we don't have very many questions here, so we're going to go through. You might have some additional comments.
Well, Governor, my original question was, what would you like your educational legacy to be in the state of Maine? Your answer was quite clear. You would like to have debt-free young people entering the workforce.
So that's one issue, but this is what I really would like to see. There are 2 issues that I strive for. I'd like to see kids leaving 3rd grade. I'd like to see 60% of the kids leaving 3rd grade to be proficient in reading and math, grade level they're in. And I would like to see the remedial work that goes into the community college or university totally eliminated. If we had that, we would be leading the nation in education. We have severe issues, and and I hear people talk about early childhood education, and I was sold on it for a while. But now we're starting to see what's happening. Early childhood education is not retained after 3rd grade. They start out, kids that, it boils down to this, folks. Good parenting, there's nothing that can substitute good parenting. And I think even those that believe in early childhood agree that good parenting, talking, working, playing with your children will solve a lot of problems once they get out of 3rd grade. Kindergarten to 3rd grade, you learn to read. And after 3rd grade, you read to learn. And if they're not proficient, they're 4 times or some statistic, they're at risk of not getting out of high school on time, graduating from community college or a bachelor's degree on time. In the state of Maine, it takes 6 years, I think 40% of our kids who go to university system, we're averaging 6 years, only 40% get a degree in 6 years. It's really not good. We are way behind when we get up to the university level.
Paul Boucher?
Sorry, Eric.
I have actually two questions, but I'll ask one. I've been all over the state of Maine the past couple of weeks, and I've noticed the gas prices. Caribou is $2.37, down here is $2.15, Bangor is $1.98, Newport $1.98, Noble Barrel $2.04, Waterville $2.15, you know, Augusta $2.14. Why?
Well, the big issue, there are two or three issues. One is the tax on gas. They're very high as a state. Two, volume. The further you go, if the volume is not, if you're not high volume, your price is gonna creep up. Three is the mix of gas that we have. There are two mixes that we use in Maine, northern mix, southern mix. Don't ask me why it was done. It was done, I don't know, 10 or 15 years ago. I don't understand it. And then the almighty dollar. I'll tell you, in America, the almighty dollar brings in greed, and egos and greed fight against character and identity and integrity. So what happens sometimes, if you're in a small market, some people will take advantage. The average, I think, is 13-cent profit. I've heard of people gouging up to 30 cents profit. There are some, if it's reported, I know the Department of Energy, Patrick, if it's reported, he'll look into it. But it's very, very hard. Transportation's a big issue for us because everything is measured from South Portland. Now, you could be 50 miles, you could be in Calais, 50 miles from St. John, pay $2.50, and be $1.98 in Gorham, Maine. It's all transportation. So those are the things that
And I was just wondering, which I agree, it's just like, but Bangor's $1.98, Newport $1.98, Waterville $2.15, and it's on the way up.
Yeah, but I think Bangor has their own tank. They have a couple of tanks. Very nice.
Okay. The other question was, where did the limits come from for importing energy from Canada? Who imposed them? And
The Maine legislature.
okay,
The Maine
why?
legislature has picked winners and losers. I've been fighting that long before I was governor. I've been fighting it every single session. We pick wind and solar. We are a renewable state. We are the cheapest energy in New England. I will agree with that. We are. But our portfolio is 64% renewable, the highest in America. We're at 64%. But wind and solar is extremely expensive. And so it's illegal. It's illegal, folks, for me to buy more than 100 megawatts of electricity from Canada. Because if it's 100 megawatts or less, it's called renewable. If it's over 100 megawatts, it's called brown. It's not renewable. That was put in by the legislature. It makes no sense. It's incredulous. It's just a ripoff, and it hurts Maine people, but they continue to do it. We've been fighting this issue every single session. It makes, when I go to governors' conferences and I tell them our 100 megawatt limitation, people laugh. They cannot believe that somebody would have thought that up. But that's the issue.
Todd Martin?
Thank you, Governor. First, I wanted to start by thanking you for releasing the 2010 Land for Maine's Future Bond this week. Voters approved it by a wide margin, so thank you for releasing that money. As we all know, there's still 6.5.
You know, I'll tell you, I did it as an olive branch of the legislature, but let me tell you this, it's the most stupid decision I have made.
This tees up my next question. We all know there's still $6.47 million of the 2010 element bond that has expired. Representative Cooley, I understand, has a bill to extend the authority of that bond. I think the legislature is poised to pass that. In your letter to the Senate President and the House Speaker, you did say that you would release that money if the legislature reauthorized that. But on a radio show, you said you might veto it, so I'm just curious.
No, I didn't say I would veto that.
Said the legislature might need 2/3 to
No,
get that.
the legislature will need 2/3. Every bill this session that comes out of the legislature will need 2/3 for it to go into law. I'm just telling you that. If you're not willing to lower, if you're going to continue taking money out of Maine people's pockets, then you ought to work harder and get 2/3 on every bill you want, because the people of Maine are not being treated fairly. Now, you want to talk about lands for Maine's future? Get me going, 'cause I really hate that. I'll tell you why. You'll hear a lot more about it when the session starts. $246 million has been taken off the local tax rolls and put into Maine's land future. Every community in Maine has given up $246 million in property tax revenues. Then they come to the state of Maine and ask the state of Maine to go borrow the $246 million and to give it to someone so they can put this into perpetuity. Now, I will give you what my objection is. Tell me if this is fair. The majority, and I'll go by the majority here. You own a 37-acre island off the coast of Maine. You sell 35 acres of that 37 acres to the outdoor trust, island trust or whatever it's called, the Maine trust. You take the funds that they give you for that.
Heritage Trust.
Right, so you take that money, then you go build yourself a $2 million home on that 37 acres. You have no neighbors, and you pay very little taxes. I don't think that's right. We have a project right now. It's appraised at $164,000, and it's going to be paying. There's a certain person in Augusta doesn't like me, by the way. He's in my party. They're trying to sell it for 1.5. How right is that? It's gouging the Maine people. Now, you can say, well, people are stupid enough to sell it, and they voted for it. But what people don't realize is this. Yes, the people voted for the bonds. They did. But read the fine print. Every project has to be approved by the Lands for Maine Future Board and signed off by a governor. If I don't agree that it's good for the state of Maine, I have the last say. When you pass those votes with a high voter margin, you agreed to that. That's what you wanted us to do. Now you're saying, well, we don't want you involved. You can't have it both ways. You can't just open the floodgate and say, okay, well, I like that project, so let's veto the government. Now they're trying to take my powers away, so it can't do it. So we'll have another constitutional battle. And that one's going to last long because I'm not going to ask the question to the Supreme Court anymore. We're going to go through the litigation process so that I can get all these Land for Maine's future people wasting their money.
Thank you for that very concise response, Governor.
I think this is more about checks and balances too.
It is.
We'll have
It's
more
all
on
about checks and
this during the next session, as he indicated, but
There are three equal but separate branches of government. You have the legislative branch who make the laws, executive branch who implement the laws, and the courts who sit in judgment of the laws. The problem with that is when one of the branches decides they don't like the other one, so they change the rules. Now, we had a constitutional battle last year. The federal Constitution, the United States Constitution, agreed with the governor. The Maine State Supreme Court agreed with the legislature. That's where we stand. Because, and incidentally, They only answer the question, which is not binding. But the United States Supreme Court said, you can't leave a bill at the foot of a door. And that's what they tell me I'm doing. If they're not in, I gotta just put it at the foot of the door. Or give it to a non-elected official. That was what the whole battle was about.
Right, next question, Gary Mosher.
Hello, Mr. LePage, Governor. I want to thank you so much.
Mr. LePage sounds so much better.
It does. I want to thank you so much for having common sense. The last 5 years has been a pleasure watching you try to turn the state around. Now to my question. I'm in the harness racing industry, and if the commission, the racing commission, comes under the Agricultural Board in Augusta. We only have 3 commissioners sitting on our board that oversees us. We need 2 more.
Oh, I know, and believe me, I will say
I don't know
that
who appoints them or anything, but
they're appointed by me.
yes, sir.
And we've been looking and looking. I must have asked 50 people, and they want nothing to do. Seriously,
I can get you a couple.
give me some names.
Honestly, I can.
We found some people, they get vetted, and some get dropped out. But we are looking, and so if you have some people, I mean, I'm appointing people every day. I have appointed more people in my 5 years than most governors have done in 8 years. I mean, the judges, for instance, you had to hit a, let me say about judges. Tom Nail, sitting in the audience, is appointed a judge today. He's appointed. Now he's got to get the legislators to vote for him, because they got to confirm. But I appointed 5 today. I appointed, I think, 3 people today, the University of Maine, Community College. I mean, every week we appoint, I bet, 8 or 10 people. So we have to find thousands of people. And they go through a vetting process. It's a very lengthy process. And harness racing has been a tough one for him.
Well, we just gave him your card, so he'll call the office with a few names and we'll go through that process. Okay?
Thank you, Governor.
Incidentally, if you want to serve on the board, please give us your name. We are looking for people. We're constantly looking for people. In fact, right now, I'm looking for 5 people on Lance of Maine's future. I cleaned them all up.
That's not true, but we do have a couple vacancies. Lorraine Ryu? Or Rue? Right here? Oh, I hold the mic.
You hold the mic. Oh, power. Who's got the power? I've got the voice. You do. Bonjour, bonsoir. I was born and brought up in Lewiston, in Little Canada, not too far for maybe we played together as kids. And my background, you're moving away from it. I know people can. Yeah. My background of my experience being brought up in a French community was a lot richer than what you've reflected to be. And so I come here with a voice, not for the Franco-Americans, but for the elders who come from the state, who have worked hard all of their lives with little pay, and because of that, they have very little Social Security. Today, I had to go to Social Security to defend myself, to say that I am right in being able to receive Maine Care. Maine Care was going to stop my benefits. I had to drive from Waterville to Farmington to defend the fact that I did write an application and an annual review. But like we so often hear about DHHS, how they fouled here and they fouled there, and they're fined here and they're fined there, but they're not fine in the right way towards the elders and towards the poor. Now, don't smirk at me,
I'm not smirking.
because
I'm not
I
smirking.
feel that that's a key issue. I'm sorry I wasn't here to hear the others. I thought it was starting at 7. But we have a very important issue to address, and that is the care
I'm not
of our
smirking.
elders
I'm not
who
smirking.
have no voice.
I'm not smirking. because of that, because earlier I addressed that issue. I put in my last biennial budget, $46 million to make sure that everyone with a mental illness, a disability, and over 65 would have the services they qualify and should have. And the legislature in the state of Maine took $30 million of that $46 million and gave it to the schools, gave $20 million to the schools, $10 million to illegal aliens. And ma'am, I agree with you 100%. But the governor can only put it up there. He does not appropriate money. He does not get the opportunity to appropriate money. He puts a budget up there, and if you notice, since I've been the governor, I've signed one budget, the very first one, and even that was a poor budget. But I did it to try to go along, to get along. Then I realized you don't do that in Maine, because they'll take advantage of you. The main, and that's the other reason I said I'm against the minimum wage to be increased, because the minimum wage is only going to hurt the elderly more than anybody else. We should eliminate the income tax. That's how we get more money to the people in the state of Maine. And if they don't pay income tax, and you're an elderly, at least you don't have the inflationary factor of having to pay for higher wages. So I am with you 100%. The people in Maine, when they turn to 65, they're kicked to the curb, just like our military. That's another area that we don't do enough for. So I agree with you. I'm not smirking against you. I'm on your side.
And we have your information, and we actually have the commissioner of DHHS here tonight, so I'm going to give her that information. If you have issues that you spoke of tonight, and you need help, we'll have somebody take care of or get back to you.
And I do understand that there is some relationship between Maine Care and Social Security, but Social Security is not something we control. We have not, that's federal. And I fear the day that I get to collect.
Tyler Backus?
I think you're absolutely right, though. I'm with you 100%.
So first I want to thank, because I got to go to the employee recognition to somebody that works for me. I'm recognized there, so thank you for that. So my question has to do with education funding. And I just wanted to know if you're going to look into how state funding is distributed to schools to better ensure it helps out the individuals, especially the main taxpayer individuals that need help versus out-of-staters that under the current funding model also get help.
I don't know what you mean. You mean K through 12?
No. So when state funding is distributed to communities, an assessment is done for each. So Waterville gets X number of dollars.
Valuation.
Right. So because everybody pays the same valuation, whether you're a Maine citizen or not, you get benefit out of that.
And many kids that, for instance, if you're homeschooled, that family pays their property taxes like anybody else, but they get no benefit. I will tell you that in Maine, we are a sparsely populated state. If you look at the geography of Maine, and the problem with our school system is all the number of votes, all the votes from Southern Maine. Southern Maine controls the state because of the vote, just the population. That's really a problem when it comes to school funding, because most of the rich cities or towns are in the southern part of the state, not the northern part of the state. Northern part of the state, when you hear the saying that we're always ignored, Aroostook County, you hear it all the time, Washington County, you hear it all the time. I'm not going to say it's totally true, but there's a lot to it, a lot more than meets the eye. So small towns with high valuations get theoretically, on the coast, they get hurt the most. Because the value is from the high-priced landowners and homeowners from out of state. So they raise the value, but the people that live there have to pay at a higher valuation, and they don't have the money. So if they don't get it from the school, the taxes can't raise it enough to give them a good quality education. The formula is a problem. 2 years ago, I believe, or 3 years ago now, We did change the formula a little bit to try to put more money into the rural, smaller districts. But I agree, it needs a complete overhaul. The next
I actually
week,
said you emailed you a proposal.
yeah,
6 months ago.
right. I said earlier, we brought Bill Beardsley in because he's really good in education. We're gonna bring the economics in it. We're gonna bring some consultants in to look at our formula, because it is not a good formula. I'll give you another example. A city like Waterville, for instance, it is hurt a great deal. Anyone up and down the corridor, with the exception of York County and Cumberland County, really get hurt in the formula. So, I don't disagree. We have a lot of work to do in education. Our education system, not only in the funding aspect, but incidentally, with all the problems I'm telling you, we are the 7th highest expenditure in education in America. Believe it or not, we are one of the top spenders. We are up around 15,000. If you put in teacher retirement, teacher medical, all that adds on, which the state picks up. State picks up the debt service on the schools. If you add that all on to the $900 million, it's about $1.2 billion that we put in. So it's a very, very high percentage with a very, very low return. And the reason I say that, and I'm not meaning to insult anyone, it's just that we have the average high school in America, the average high school that has a principal has 1,500 students. State of Maine, the average superintendent is roughly 1,000 school districts. We have some school districts up north that are less than 1,000 kids. In Florida, they'll have 200,000 or 300,000 kids under one superintendent. New York City has one superintendent, 560,000 kids. So the superintendent, we have so many. And it's just because of we treasure what we call home rule. And you try to interfere with home rule, and boy, oh boy, that is bad business. I've tried it. Anyone else?
We have one more question here, and then we'll get to closing remarks. It's from Treza White, or Teresa. This actually, I looked up the veto message you're referring to, and it's LD 59. And I just want to remind you of the title of it, Governor. And it is an act to protect students' rights and privacy regarding their school records. There was a veto message that you wrote, but it was some time ago. So if you need a reminder, let me know. But
thank you, Governor LePage. This past year, my parents, along with State Representative Robert Foley of Wells, appeared in front of the Education Committee on behalf of LD 59, a bill that would extend the protection of students' privacy under FERPA law to private schools as it is already guaranteed in all Maine public schools. The bill was developed after my brother, Michael, who was a student down the road at Temple Academy, had his private school records released by the school's administrator, Denise LaFountain, to the paper without parental consent or court order. Denise released the records to the newspaper reporter, Chris Cousins, after covering the abuse and threats toward a student, my brother Michael. There was a statewide need for the bill to protect all of Maine's K-12 students, and LD 59 was passed by the Education Committee, the House, and the Senate. When it got to your desk, it was vetoed. In a bipartisan fashion, the House overrode you 141-1, and the Senate followed with 34-1. LD 59 thankfully went into effect October 15, 2015. You portray yourself as a defender of children. So my question to you, Governor, is why were you more willing to protect the clergy rather than the children?
I didn't care about the clergy. It wasn't an issue of clergy for me. It was an issue as a private school. Private school, I don't believe the government should interfere. And you have a choice. You can go to a public school and get all the public laws, but I think a private school is a private school. That was my decision. It was pure, it's not about clergy. Matter of fact, if I had my way, every single school in Maine would qualify for public money, because everybody in Maine, whether you go to a private school, a Catholic or a religious school, or an atheist school, or any other school, you're paying property tax. 50% of property tax should be going to education, and it's not doing that in Maine, and shame on us. So that was not based on the clergy, it was solely based on private enterprise, private school versus a public entity. That's all I was looking for. That's what I was looking at.
And Governor, would you like to remind people about the contact legislators sheet?
Yep.
And people getting involved?
We have a couple of legislators here tonight. Henry Beck, Representative Henry Beck in the back. We have
If you're a legislator,
Representative
feel
Tom.
free to stand up, we'll recognize you.
Tom Longstaff right here. And is there any more questions? Not, I just have, yes, sir.
You want to stand up over here? Oh, wait, are we good still?
Every place I go, you have the same question. I can't satisfy.
I just want to know if you're going to enforce the law.
Would you like me to ask my question?
Yes, sir.
The question regarding the 36 million people that are here in the summer, what sort of sales tax would offset a decrease? What sort of sales tax increase would fund an offset in the income tax?
1%.
So that, and I've said,
You could do it with 1%, but it would take 1.5% if you still want revenue sharing and all the things that really shouldn't be there. And we're going to be having, once the bonds are paid for the money we had to borrow for the hospital, it's going to be an extra $50 million there a year. And then we have about $200 million a year that frankly we waste in education because we're not getting anything for it. So I think if we were able to do in education what we're starting to do in DHHS, we could lower the cost of operations to a far more efficient system. I know right now there's some hollering about USDA and SNAP and everything, but we're automating, we're going from a paper system to an automated system, and I defy anybody to tell me that the first day you flick the switch, it's perfect. And we're going to get that resolved just like we did DHHS. In the prior administration, doing Baldacci, they spent $158 million on a system. I came in, we had to throw it out, get a new system. It took us 1.5 years to get it going. It's going. You don't hear any more problems with checks getting out on time. So the issue is, if we do 3 things in Maine. One, is we make it attractive to attract young workers. That's one. Get rid of that income tax so that money can go back into the economy right away. That's going to create, about 80% of that money is going to create sales tax. Because 80% of the money goes back to the economy and very little goes back to long-term savings. So I'm using an 80-20 model, but they're telling me we save about 4%, so it would be more like 96% go back to the model. And then if you take off and when I say education, I'm talking about 2 things. I'm talking about K through 12 and higher education. K through 12, we have a problem with administration, not enough money getting into the classroom, and clearly not enough money getting in between K and 3. When 70% or 67% of the kids get out of grade 3 and are not proficient in reading and writing, reading and math, they have a much higher risk of falling out of the system, falling through the cracks, and the rest of their way through through school, through grade 12 and on to higher education. The real problem. I think the administration, as long as we stay married to home rule in education, we will continue to have 127 school districts, with some districts having just a few hundred people, kids in it. You'll have another one. I think the largest school district is Portland, and it's probably got about 8,000 kids. That's not a big school district. So those are some of the things that we need to continue to have a safety net that works for the needy, not for everybody. If we do that, I believe we can run this state with a 6.5% sales tax, no income tax. It's being done. We don't have to go far to look. Go to New Hampshire, and they say, well, their property taxes are much higher. Check it. It's one thing to say it, go look at it. Because I just looked at my foster brother's tax bill and my tax bill in Booth Bay, and big difference. He's much slower. I should have never sold a house in Waterville.
I have a question about the EBT cards, food stamps, whatever you want to call it. Every month when they reload the food stamps, what's left over doesn't get pulled back. It gets added on, so it doesn't become a food stamp, it becomes a savings account.
Yeah, some people have as high as $20,000.
So why doesn't the government pull back everything that's left on the cards and then reload them, or just reload the difference up to what they're authorized for that month?
It's every law. It's not something we can control. This lady right here, the commissioner, is constantly, in fact, we're trying right now to get to Washington to meet with the secretary of DHS. It's a constant battle. Believe me, the ideology and the practice and the regulations they have in Washington are totally opposite of what I think is an efficient system. You and then you.
I'd really like to see the numbers on that income tax versus sales tax. And I'm thinking on the income tax, a lot of the elderly people on fixed income aren't really paying income tax.
That's correct.
Social Security is already exempt. Now, this year, I think it is, military pensions up to 25,000.
Whatever it is.
It's a number.
It's the same number as Social Security.
Well, and that's also exempt. So if those people already aren't paying income tax, and we eliminate the income tax, and then turn around and charge higher sales tax, won't those people be paying higher taxes when all is said and done?
Yeah, but in our program, we gave them a credit. In the program, the budget I had, we gave them a credit for their property tax and a credit for their sales tax, for the elderly. It was see, I'm 65, so I was trying to take care of myself. No, really, it was, the program was, and you're absolutely right, it would be more expensive if you don't do anything for them, because there's a big population that really doesn't pay income tax. So what we were doing is we're giving them several $100s back for home property taxes and for
Giving them that from what?
from the state through the
Tax credit.
and it's a tax credit on property, sales tax and property. We were going to give them a credit to the elderly.
Cities and states must enforce the
Yeah.
Can't hear you up here.
Citizens, cities and state have to enforce the law. And you're absolutely right. The problem.
And they're not for health nuisance laws, public health and safety laws regarding wood smoke. It's all over.
Okay. The issue has been brought through, and this goes way back to 2003 when I was mayor. It's the same argument I've heard every year since 2003. Unfortunately, what you're telling me is it's a nuisance. It's a nuisance to you, but it's not a nuisance.
It's a major public health problem associated with heart attacks and asthma attacks that can kill, and an imminent danger. It's not a nuisance or a bother.
Okay. Now, the legislature makes the laws. They have not been willing to make that law.
There are laws that are existing right now to stop this, but they're not being enforced, and that's a crime.
Well, I know that the outside boilers have been shut down.
Not all of them.
Not
They're
all.
allowing some that are violating the PM standard.
Where?
And
Here
wood
in
smoke
Waterville?
is 5 times more toxic.
Here in Waterville?
Everywhere, all over the state.
Folks, we've had this conversation for 12
I
years.
want to enforce the law, yes or no?
Yes.
But to do it, you're not.
Okay.
And I won't take up any more of your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for your time tonight.
Now.
I appreciate it.
Before we go, two things I would urge you to do. One is contact your legislators on anything you agree or disagree with I say. I'm not here to try to persuade you to go my way. I'm here to tell you my proposals, how I want to move the state forward. And the main issue that I want to talk to you about is I'm trying to lower the age of our population over time and get more people working. Because that's what's going to protect the seniors of our state. The overwhelming majority of the seniors in the state of Maine that have any large retirement or have been affluent leave our state. They leave our state for two reasons. Because our income tax is too high, and we have a debt tax. Now, this year's budget, the debt tax, out of a $6.6 billion budget, $6.6 billion biennial budget, the debt tax is projected to bring in maybe $10 to $20 million. But a perception is that you're going to come after my assets. And so they protect themselves in Florida, Louisiana, Texas, Arizona. So they go to states that even have income tax, but they don't have a death tax.
Jamaica?
Well, it's not U.S., at least not recently. maybe we can take them over. So that's a real issue. Because if we lose, every year, we lose. For the last 25 years, we average $12 million of hard assets that leave our state. I mean, they cash it out and they move. So they no longer have a doctor here, an accountant here, a financial advisor here. All these people are losing business and they go to another state. I know the legislature believes it's anecdotal and we have the data, but I will tell you that that needs to be addressed. Now, I think a zero income tax would be preferable than a 4%, but 4% will, in fact, make us competitive nationally. And to give you, in closing, I just want to give you what happens with the tax. It's a real important number. In the state, New England, for instance, New Hampshire has no tax. Massachusetts is 5.53. I thought I had it right here. I'm sorry. The average for the nation, for state income tax, 5.63. The average for rural states in America is 5.16. The average in New England is about 5.96%. Now, people say we're competitive in New England. Yes, we are, but we're not competitive in America. We are getting our lunch taken from us every day from the southeast, starting at South Carolina, all the way down the East Coast, across to Texas, up to the Dakotas, that basket of states. Southeast, Mid-Atlantic states are eating our lunch. Today, I call a major employer in South Portland, 360 jobs. They're looking to move to Phoenix. Some of the best paying jobs, they're looking to move to Phoenix. Two reasons. Taxation and energy. And energy was number one. So that's what I'm trying to bring out to Maine people. These are the issues. That's why I'm on them. You don't have to agree with them, and you can disagree with them, and that's fine and dandy. But I will tell you this. You disagree, you're going to be backwards and you're going to lose. Because it's not. It's what I tell people. I wrote it in a letter today. We all have an opinion, and we're entitled to an opinion. But we are not, as a society, entitled to our own facts. We can't make them up. The facts are the facts. And so that's why I ask you to look at the data, talk to your representatives. I know the two representatives in this room don't agree with me. But we'll see. I do know this, that we have a 4.1% unemployment rate. We have more general fund revenues coming in now than in the last 30 or 40 years. We have some areas of problems, which are the northern counties, which are totally overlooked because they don't have enough votes. So I leave it to you to see if you agree or disagree. I get into the debate. Now, while I can't solve the wood smoke debate, I can't. I will tell you, I appreciate, I know about it. I'm not so sure the science agrees. Thank you all.